I'm Louis Weeks, a member of the board and a failed historian, and have been asked to moderate the Q&A and there's a providential plot behind us until 6:30, and I see a hand up, and please go ahead, Bob.
It just, to me, the answer to your question is, to me, the answer to your last question is the arrogance of man, and how, to what extent religious conviction actually encourages and incites more of the sense of I'm right and you're wrong, I understand God's will and you don't understand God's will. And so someone who is perhaps more secular in some cases is better able to see both sides of an issue. I think that's clearly a problem throughout religion, not just in the 1850s, but certainly today throughout the world as well. And I'd be interested in your comment on that.
I agree. It seems to me that, and I'm going to direct this at people who stand in the Calvinist tradition, Presbyterian Reformed tradition. We have a doctrine of sin that has told us that none of us are exempt from it, that we have an almost bottomless capacity to deceive ourselves and make our self-interest into that which is righteous. And yet, when we're very good at being able to see how other people do that. I think there's some words about motes and beams here that might come into play. But I do think that you're right on. And what we maybe need to take more seriously is our own Calvinist doctrine of sin, which corrupts our own understanding of God's will.
Thank you.
Well,
yes.
I think it's just pointed out by the whole study of hermeneutics that when you have an already predisposed position, you're going to go to the Bible and look for support to your predisposition.
Yeah. One of the things I'm struck by as I read 19th century stuff, and I'm doing a lot of this now. I'm writing a bicentennial history of my own institution, which feels like an increasingly heavy weight every day. But I am struck by the fact that my 19th century predecessors almost didn't want to talk about hermeneutics. The meaning is sort of self-evident to any candid mind. Now, the problem with that is then how do you account for so many differences? I've actually only found one place so far where 19th century Princetonians admit this. Charles Hodge, reflecting at the end of the Civil War, is deeply pained, and he says in effect, well, I guess what we have to realize from this is that we in the North, while we think we're right, we're not holding to that position because of that. It's because the culture around us supports it. And then he basically says that's why the South is wrong, because other people have been doing. But then where I think he has a tremendous insight, but he doesn't follow through with it. He wrote a systematic theology in the next decade, shortly before he died, and I don't see any of that coming through in the systematic theology. I wish it had. I think it would have been a very different kind of work.
Yes.
Did you find any examples of Southern clergy who either before the war or during the war questioned the morality of slavery?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Were there Southern clergy? The question is who questioned the morality of slavery? Yes, there definitely were, and I'm trying to think of the name of the book. David Chesbrough has written a book on dissent in the Old South, I think it's called, which looks at a number of clergy who did have dissenting views. But in general, their doubts are expressed in the privacy of their diaries, or after they express the doubt in their pulpits, they're leaving.